Howdy ho ho, my good humans. How the hell are you doing? It is time to talk the backlog with you all today. Really excited for this topic. Luna and I were shooting the breeze. I don't even remember what the hell we were talking about last time. Um, Oh, finishing games. Like, why do we finish games we don't enjoy? And just talking about finishing games in general. And then the topic came up of the backlog and how that kind of ties into preventing you from finishing games and overwhelming you. And just the whole idea of the backlog, I find really fascinating. The psychology behind a gamer's backlog and how they look at it and all that jazz. So, we're going to be diving into that today. And Loon, appreciate you for sparking the idea to get the ball rolling on this conversation because I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, like you say, it's an interesting topic and stuff. Some people enjoy the whole backlog process. Other people dread it. So it'll be interesting to see where other people fit in. People are going to drop the comments and stuff, whether or not they actually enjoy having a backlog. They find it, burdensome and stuff like that.
Well, actually, how about we start off right there? Do you enjoy having a backlog? Do you feel like having a backlog hurts your gaming experience? How do you feel about the backlog just in general?
I think I personally enjoy it because I dip into so many genres. I think it's kind of inevitable, I guess. At times it is a little bit overwhelming because you think like, you know, realistically speaking, we're not going to get through everything. So it does, you have that in the back of your mind, that kind of guilt that you're going to pick stuff up. You have the every intention of playing it, but you'll most likely, there's stuff on there that isn't going to get played. So I don't know. I like it personally. More options, the better.
Yeah. I'm kind of in that same boat. I don't really let it overwhelm me. I like looking at the collection or even, the digital collection and being like, huh, what? Because I think it's all a spur of the moment thing to me, which I enjoy. And we'll talk about how we organize our backlog and all this and that later. But to me, it's like the backlog is a fun sort of spur of the moment, spontaneous thing. I finish a game, put a game down, and I just kind of have this, you know, collection of unplayed stuff. It's like it's fun to just pick one, jump into something. And I don't know. To me, that's sort of the whole mentality that I think can get a little bit overwhelming at times. And I've been there too in the past, especially in the past. Um, Wherever you let it overwhelm you a little bit. You take it too seriously where you're like, I gotta get through X, Y,
Mm,
and Z. And it's like, dude,
yeah.
just in the moment, pick a game and play it. Whatever you're feeling at that time, just dive into that. It doesn't have to be too strategic.
Do you think though we can kind of view it that way because we've chunked so much off? If you were to be somebody who enters the space in now and everybody's bombarding you, you have to play Metal Gear, you have to play Uncharted, you have to play all these series and stuff. We we've
Played
as it
all of
has
them.
conquered it, we've done that stuff. So a lot of the big heavy hitters we have ticked off, so it's not as overwhelming for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a great segue. I do agree because whenever I was getting back into gaming, it was definitely overwhelming the amount of like high quality S tier backlog games that I that I had to check off that list. And so that's my thing with the backlog is if it's not an S tier backlog game, and that's something I create in my own head, but if I don't look at it as an S tier backlog game, sure. Do I want to finish a bunch of A and B tier backlog games? Absolutely. But if I go to my deathbed having a bunch of A and B tier backlog games, but I finished a good majority of the S tier ones, I'm a happy man. I want to knock off all of my S tier backlog games. So I want to transition to that to ask you, do you have any S tier backlog games left? If you do, what are they?
For me, it was difficult making the list because I'm so, I guess, greedy overall. Like, I want to experience everything. It is hard for me to like put things that high above each other. But there are things when I think about it, like there's games I want to finish or even start, and the first one that like sprung to mind is like I'm really hoping that that second Metal Gear collection has Metal Gear Solid 4. I need to play that. Like I know some people are split down the middle and they don't like aspects of it and stuff like that, but it's a series that I really enjoy, and to have that just tied to one system in its own little pocket, it just yeah, it irks me. That's definitely topping my list.
Especially because MGS4 feels like really the culmination of everything, you know what I mean, that came before it. Like that's the big sort of grand finale. That feels like what MGS5 should have been in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? Like it's just so narrative rich and full of character sort of plot points that you've been wondering about and getting resolved in MGS4. So yeah, I that is a bummer that that's just never come to Xbox or just stranded on
It
the
never made it
PlayStation.
off of PS3. It's not
Yeah.
even on it's not even on PC, is it?
No.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Did you want to rattle it back and forth one by one?
No, go ahead and go through all
Well,
yours and then I'll go through all mine.
so a little bit of a cheat here because I'm technically playing it now, but I've not finished it. So it is still a backlog game. And I don't know if I get his name right. I don't know if it's Liam O'Brien or Liam O'Brien, the guy who voices a lot of characters, but I'm a very big fan of his, and it's Asura's Wrath. I never finished it.
Oh,
Never
wow.
played it. It was something that I'd always seen, and I've owned it for ages, and I've finally started. I'm in chapter two. Oh my, his voice is so powerful, but the story is so good for what it is. Like you think it's just going to be some button mashing stuff. It's a pretty strong game from start to
Yeah.
finish.
It's very Final
It's
Fantasy
crazy.
16. It has a lot of Final Fantasy 16 in it, dude. Like you can see some inspiration where Final or Square was looking over what is it, Creative Business Unit 3 was looking over at Asura's Wrath and the spectacle and set pieces
Mm.
and yeah, they definitely took some inspiration from that.
Yeah, that opening scene, like for even how old the game is, that was impressive. I
Yeah.
know it's a lot of it was it's on rails and it's quick time events and stuff, but I don't know, it just feels epic. It just feels so the scale is
Yes.
crazy. And the thing is you look back and you think, where's that scale now in a lot of games? We get big maps and stuff,
Yep.
but like where's these like huge you think if you can accomplish that space and make this huge scale, why can't we get more of that in games?
Yeah, and imagine it today, man, if we went back to like that tight linear design with the particle effects and the ray tracing and
Mm,
the explosive and or destructive environments and all that can take place with, the crazy things that can be done with different you know, uh, think about like Teardown. I know it's a very simple Minecraft sort of design game, but just how physics driven it is. Imagine a AAA like, Mercenaries back in the day. Imagine a AAA studio really wanting to make a tight linear experience where it's just so uh specifically designed around these on rail sections that just feel like a huge spectacle. We need to see more of that for sure.
yeah, I don't know why it's gone away because you had games like Red Faction and stuff that had that kind of destruction and kinetic combat about it, and then it kind of died down as like because a lot of games were trying to capture that, and then it kind of just fizzled out,
Yeah.
and nobody's really touching it anymore. Like not even Battlefield gets it right. Like they were the pioneers of like doing that on a multiplayer scale, and even then they've severely scaled back destructibility and stuff. It's very strange.
Well, it's funny, Loon. I was looking at a game called Nobody Wants to Die. I was thinking about picking it up yesterday, but with the what we talked about before we got on here with Dungeons of Hinterberg and Flintlock and Path of the Goddess, and I'm playing NCAA football right now, and it was just like it was a time period where I really would like to check this Nobody Wants to Die game out, but I went to the I don't know if it was. Oh, I went to a YouTube video because there was no reviews out for the game at all. And I'm like, oh, that's a bad sign. And so when I typed in Nobody Wants to Die game review, I had a full like Nobody Wants to Die playthrough that popped up. And it was like, 5 hours or whatever. I clicked on it and I was just kind of looking through the gameplay because that was all I couldn't find a damn review. And even when I went to like Metacritic, there were no reviews. Really weird. Not a good idea. If you gotta, and it from what I saw of the game, it looked pretty solid. So like dude, let people review that thing so you can get a little bit of buzz out there. But regardless, um, I was looking through the video, just kind of looking at what the gameplay was. I was like, damn, this looks pretty interesting. But when I went to the comments, everybody in the comments was like, 5 hours, da da da. I'm not gonna pay five, it's a $25 game. I'm like, dude, what the hell can you get 5 hours of enjoyment out of for less than $25 these days? But that's kind of the problem where it's like can you make a red faction today? Can you make a 7 hour experience and charge $60 for it? Like I don't know if it'll be a big commercial success, unfortunately.
How much did Evil West launch for?
I think
Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure 60.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I
don't
didn't feel like remorse of buying that at launch.
Oh no, but you and I are, I think we're in definitely the minority. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the people who complain are honestly, that's the thing I've started to realize just in general is that I think a lot of the people who complain are actually in the minority. They just complain so loud that it feels like the majority.
It's because people don't, it is a weird thing. You don't, it's so rare for you to have a positive opinion on something that's so strong that
Right.
you then take it to the internet to vocalize it. You
Yeah.
usually just keep it to yourself because you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
But when you're hating something and it fills you with rage, you have to vent it somebody somewhere, and that's why it feels like they are more so outnumbering us when they're actually probably not. A lot of people are probably enjoying it, but they're just not saying anything. But
Right.
the review thing is very weird. Is that a new release?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a play on published title. I didn't know that. So it has some decent funding behind it. It's like a detective Blade Runner-esque game, more of a walking sim sort of puzzle style game, but yeah, it looks cool as shit, man.
Hmm. Yeah, that is bizarre. Usually, because they throw codes at everybody now,
Right.
so they must have given codes out, and people have just decided not either not to cover it, or it's released in a really bad time because people are covering other things. There's
Yes.
only a certain amount of time, and it's like, do you cover this or do you cover a big Game Pass title that's coming out that you know a lot of people are gonna have access to?
Totally.
So.
But I went way off the rails there. What's another one of your S tier backlog games, man?
A big regret of mine being so, you know, enamored by CRPGs. I've never played Planescape Torment.
Oh wow.
Like, I've heard it's meant to be, I think it has combat, but it doesn't prioritize it at all. I think I remember seeing somebody say it's like one of the best books you'll ever play, kind of thing. It's very, very narrative driven and a lot of reading. And I dig that. I dig that. But I've never played it. And yeah, it's something that I really do want to get round to knocking off.
It's funny you bring that up because you put me onto that Mortismal dude, the YouTube guy, and I
Mm,
literally just watched a video of his. I think it was, I could be wrong on this, so don't take this to the bank, but I think it was something about like games, great games that he didn't enjoy. And I
yeah.
think Planescape Tournament was on there if I'm not mistaken. And I think one of the things he said was combat is just like it's really, really, really bad. But the
It's
story's
even
incredible.
funny because his name is based off of the skull character from that game, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe I'm wrong that maybe it wasn't something to do with because I've been binging a lot of his videos. They kind of all meld together in my head. But I know I remember him specifically talking about the combat not being good, but the story being incredible
Yeah,
for whatever
yeah.
video it was.
No, I think but that's the thing though, you can still not enjoy it. You can still enjoy aspects, but overall, like the experience is cumbersome and stuff like that. So
Totally.
he probably may have not enjoyed it, but enjoyed aspects. This one I'm partially to blame because I have the ability to go do it. It's just a choice, and that's the Final Fantasy remakes. I'm just holding
Mm,
out. I'm being stubborn here. If deep down you could argue, if they're that important, I'll go and, dust the PS5 off and play them. But I want to play them on my system.
yeah.
And that I guess bundling remakes and 16 together, like I'd love to play them on an Xbox. So yeah. And then the final one for me is also something that I've started, and it was a game this year, Banishers, Ghost of New Eden. I want to get
Nice.
I want to get back to it because I really, really enjoyed Vampire, and I enjoy these types of games. I can't remember what came out that pulled me away from it. And it's
Oh,
kind of
that
one of them things when it slips, and then tons of more games come out, and then it's just an avalanche, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, I need like a slot of time to just be able to jump back into this.
that was a hell. That was, I mean, awful time to release. That was February. You started playing Infinite
Mm.
Wealth and then Persona. So that
And
was,
Dragon's Dogma, right?
yeah, that
Not
was right
too
around there. It was
long
like
after
March.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
just non-stop.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I did struggle making an S tier list. I think that that's the things that like stood out to me. I'm sure there's so many more that I could, you know,
Yeah. I'm glad that you included
comb through.
a modern or a newish release because I had one of those on there and I was thinking about dropping it. And I was like, shit, I really feel strongly that this is an S tier backlog game, but I was like, can it really be if it's so new? But I'm glad you put Banishers up there. And the cool thing about Banishers too is that it's such an easy game to jump back into because the combat is, I mean, laughably easy. It's such a simple game. So yeah, that's a fun that'll actually probably be one when you jump back into it, you even like enjoy it more in some sense, you know?
Hmm. Yep. I think that's me done with my list.
Nice. Well, I guess I'll tie right there off of what we were talking about of the newish game that I consider an S tier backlog title. And that's Alan Wake 2 for me. I'm still sitting there waiting. It's gonna be a little bit. What is it? Late October when that physical
Yeah, I
gets its
believe
release
so.
date?
Yep.
So it's gonna be a little bit, but I think that's an S tier backlog game for me. I mean, from what I've heard people say about that game, just leaning much more into the narrative, much more into the horror, and not making it as action packed. I thought the combat was really, really janky in the first Alan Wake. I loved every other aspect about Alan Wake outside of the combat. And then also just hearing how experimental Alan Wake 2 is with different musical aspects and yeah, I mean that's an S tier backlog title for me.
Yeah, I should have probably added that to my list as well, thinking about it. I think I'm still soured by how they handled the release and stuff. But yeah, I'll be there day one probably.
I'm still kind of sour on it too. Black Myth Wukong not getting a physical on day one, seemingly.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
What,
some weird.
across all systems?
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
interesting.
very interesting. I think they just having trouble figuring out how to. I don't remember. It was some weird explanation. Like they couldn't figure out something or another, and I was like, how the fuck can you not figure out how to put the damn data on a disk and ship it out, or get it to retailers? But they don't have a big publisher backing them or anything, so yeah, it is what it is.
It's more of a common occurrence as of late because they had problems with Baldur's Gate 3 and
Yeah,
getting that all on the disc. The Ascent, which got a PS4 and PS5 physical, but it had to skip Xbox because they were running into issues getting the content on the disc. And now you're saying, yeah, Black Myth, it's very strange. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they mean that they're struggling to fit it all onto one disc and they don't want to fork out formatting two discs because it'll be effort and money and stuff. Yeah, I have no idea.
you
So I
would
assume
think
Black Myth will be a big game.
exactly, and like that's a game people are gonna want to have physically. The artwork and shit is so sick. That's one you want on your shelf, in my
Mm.
opinion. Another one for me, S tier backlog title, the Yakuza franchise. That is Like, if you had to say what is the one backlog game or the one backlog franchise or whatever, that's it for me. Like, if I was retired, I that would be my, you know, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, burning through Yakuza. Like, I really, really want to dive headfirst into that. But the thing is also, I want to play the mini games, man. And I don't want to go and just power through the story in 15, 20 hours. Like, I want to play another 10 hours of mini games because they're so damn fun
Mm.
in the judgment games. So I know they're going to be excellent in Yakuza. It's just that's a really daunting task, but I don't know. I think it's just gonna have to be. But the thing is, like, I played through Red Dead 1 and GTA 5 this year. So I easily could have played through Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 1. It's just like, what the hell, man?
I mean, I had a friend who has chunked their way through the Yakuza franchise this year, and they're fairly slow at knocking games off, but they did it like I can't remember how many it was in the end. I think they went from 0 to 5,
Damn.
so they were on a roll,
Yeah.
and yeah, so you definitely can knock them off, and like I think I said before, I think they're about 15, 20 hours if you're just main storying it, and then but that's the thing though, you get lost in them side quests because they're even more of a treat because they curate it to that time period. So like I think in Yakuza's area of like Michael Jackson and stuff making
Oh
an appearance and
man.
stuff like that, but they obviously have to name him different,
Right.
and it's just that's something that they just nail on the head is just going back to that time period, all right, what was going on? Let's put that in. They have the massive like phones that were like briefcase things, and they do a side
Yeah.
quest with that, and it's just such a treat. So you just
Yeah.
get lost in that world because it just adds to it because you round the corner and you're just always in up to your neck in shenanigans when you're not doing crime stuff. So
I
great.
I got this would have been a good year to really dive in as well with the new releases kind of being a little bit dry, or at least for my, style of games, my preference of games. Um, I probably could have got through three Yakuza games in the time it finished me, or the time it took me to finish Red Dead 1 and GTA 5, but here's what it is. And I think there's something too about replaying games which Red Dead 1 actually was. Talk about an S tier backlog title. That is definitely an S tier backlog title that I finished this year. But I had already played so much of it. You know what I mean? So it probably only took me another 20 hours to get through it. But once again, that's a Yakuza game. 20 hours. So is what it is. But Dishonored 2 is a big one for me. I played and finished Dishonored 1. I have not played and finished Dishonored 2 yet. I haven't even started it. But I have no idea why. I guess once again, there's just always something that you're diving into. But I've heard kind of mixed things about 2.
Yeah, because I finished one Death of the Outsider and did Prey, and then went back to Dishonored 2, and I don't know, it just didn't click with me. I don't know what it was. It had the same kind of level design. It wasn't, just didn't grip me. It for me, it felt like the weakest out of all of the games that they'd done, other than Redfall. I think they did Redfall, right? They're the two.
Uh, I think yeah, Arcane Austin was.
Yeah,
I don't know if Leon did. I think it might have been Arcane Austin for Dishonored 2. I'm not 100% sure. I know they collaborated on all of them.
yeah. So Redfall aside, it was the weakest, I think, of all of them.
Um, DMC, Ninja Theory's DMC,
Oh,
and
what a great game!
I bought it. It was on sale on the PlayStation Store recently for $10, and I bought it and I played through the first like 2 hours or so, maybe. It's absolutely excellent. But then, NCAA football came out, and now we got a couple new releases on the horizon, and that's the thing with the backlog. It's just so easy to get damn distracted. But
Yeah,
DMC 4 as well. That's I haven't played those. I really messed up when I jumped straight to DMC 5. But I was so tempted by the new, shiny object. I was like, I got to see what's going on with this thing, man.
I did you not do any of them before then?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I played 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't. I jumped in with five as my first.
Oh wow.
Um, I'd seen the series and wanted to play it, but just never like jumped into it. And I did five, and then I was like, man, this is great. I got to like experience everything. And then I went through one, two, three, four, and the what was it Ninja Fury one?
Yeah, that's just
DMC.
DMC. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all great apart from two.
You know,
They're all great.
it's crazy because I've played and finished all of those whenever I was younger, but I haven't went back to it at all as an adult. So I wonder because I never as a kid I never really thought anything about DMC2. Like, but you're so young, you're really not in that space of critical thinking like that. Like it's probably 11, 12 or whatever. Um, and so I just was like, cool, another DMC game. We'd rent it from Blockbuster and play through it in a week and
Do you
take it
remember
back.
anything about it, or is it all completely purged?
I don't remember much of it. I remember that was DMC2 is like really easy,
Yeah,
correct? Yeah.
yeah.
I remember it being much easier than the other two games. Um, I remember three once again, I'm 20 years removed from this practically. But I remember three having some of like the best set pieces
Mm.
from any of the DMC games. And I remember the first DMC game kind of having more of a Castlevania feel where it was a little bit, it was more, it was less spectacle, but more ambiance and more like taking in and breathing in that atmosphere and maybe less over the top bombastic feel than three was. But once again, I'm quite a ways removed from those games.
Yeah, there was a lot of backtracking in the first game, and in the
Yeah.
second game, it was just very the way that I always just think about it is it must have for the people who had played DMC one and then jumped onto that and were like die hard fans and were like, oh my God, more of this. And then they boot it up and they're like, what is this? It must have felt like when you watched X-Men Origins Wolverine, you saw
Mm.
Deadpool for the first time and they've sewn his mouth shut. And it's just like, what have you done? Like for the people that are waiting for a Deadpool movie appearance, and then that's what you get, and it's just like, that ain't it, Chief. That ain't it.
Yeah. But those are really my only like S tier backlog titles. Don't get me wrong. There's like you said earlier, there's hundreds of games on my backlog that I want to play. And then we even talked about this last time, like Life is Strange. I want to play through the rest of the Life is Strange series. I want to play through the rest of the Wolfenstein games. I want to finish up Gears 5. I want to, play through Fable 3. Like there's franchises that I've been playing through that I want to kind of finish up and I feel strongly about doing so, but it's not like Grand Theft Auto. I've never played any of the Grand Theft Auto side games, like Vice City Stories, or I've
Oh,
never
really?
played. Yep, never played any of those. So, and for a series that is like, I would consider probably my top five favorite series of all time. Like, I would love to play those games, or the Vita Uncharted game. I've never had the opportunity to play that because I don't have a Vita. You know what I mean? So, like, at some point, I would like to pick up a Vita, play Uncharted Golden Abyss and Vice City Stories. You know, on the PlayStation 2 but if I went to my grave not having played those, would I be okay? Yes. If I went to my grave never playing through the Yakuza franchise, would I be okay? Probably not. Or at least attempting to play through the Yakuza franchise.
I feel you.
So those are our S tier backlog games. And next little topic within the topic that we had jotted down was backlog goals. Do you
Mm.
have any backlog related goals? We touched on this a little bit earlier, but how do you line that up? How do you feel about backlog goals? Do you have any currently? Do you have any that are ongoing from year to year?
Um, it's so difficult. I think yes, because intro achievements you can set like targets and stuff.
Oh,
So for
cool.
me, it's more. having a goal of 100%ing something more so than like knocking something off a story completion for me. But I do, in the back of my mind, I do want to at least, it's not like hard locked in this has to be done, but I try and get at least 10 like quote unquote backlog games off in a year.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the world if that doesn't happen, if there's other stuff that you've played instead of it, but that's the rough goal is that between new releases, I'll look and be like, uh, yeah, sure, why not? And try and, chip a little bit off.
That's that's the thing, man. Like with 2023, I probably it was such a stacked year for new releases. I don't know if I played hell. I don't know if I played 20 games in my backlog. I have no idea. You know what I mean? But with a year like this, I was because when I went into the year, I did my goals video, and my goal I think was to finish 20 backlog games and 10 replays. I don't know where I'm at on the replays, but I know I'm definitely going to cross that 20 mark for backlog games without a doubt. But it's a light year for new releases for me. So 2025, when you're looking at GTA 6 and Wolverine and the Judas and Death Stranding 2 and that 1943 Marvel Captain America slash Black Panther game, and there's so many new releases that are set to drop in 2025. That's probably not going to be one of those years where I'm burning through 40 backlog games or anything close to that. But yeah, this year my goal was 20 backlog titles, 10 replays. I don't know where I'm at with the replays, but I know I'm definitely going to cross that 20 mark for the backlog. And I think that's sort of at this point, like I think going into 2025 and beyond, I'll probably drop that goal back substantially because I don't have as many high priority backlog titles. You know what I mean? Like I really I've there's a part of me that kind of just wants to dabble in the indie space a lot more and go to the new releases, and I've even thought about a Steam Deck a lot. Like I've been
Yeah,
thinking
so
about it
far.
yeah. I've been thinking about it a lot more, where it's like there's so many PC only weird, experimental titles that I see, and I'm just like, damn, and usually to be fair, the best of the best typically do come to console, but there's a lot that aren't the best of the best that I would still probably really, really dig because of how weird they are. And
Mm.
so I've been thinking of it, and they're usually $15, you know what I mean? So like, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about grabbing a Steam Deck.
Yeah, even well, the Steam sales, they get really, really deep sales. And if you're not constantly in that space and then you boot it up when it's on a Steam sale and you see, 15 of these indie games that are going for like $3 a piece, it's just like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah, but that's about it for me with the backlog for the backlog goals. I'd like to knock off 15, 20 a year, but it varies depending on the releases.
yeah, I think that's about all for me. It is interesting though, because that I think we differ heavily with the other part of your like I don't ever really replay anything.
That
And
was
it's in my head that's something like you would think that obviously there are things I have replayed, but it's so rare for me to do that because it's like I guess it does the backlog is important to me because I would rather prioritize something I haven't experienced, which is such a double-edged sword because it's like, okay, you want to play something like, say, a Mass Effect. You love Mass Effect. Why don't you just replay Mass Effect?
yeah.
And you're like, the drive and the allure to experience something new that's like it and stuff like that is really what pushes me and propels me forward.
Well, and I think for me, it's kind of become a priority where I had to like especially now that the backlog's getting smaller, it's like, okay, you you're going to play a game because you want to enjoy a game. There's these games that you haven't revisited in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, like in Devil May Cry, the original trilogy. Like, why not jump into something you know you liked at one point in your life, see how you feel about it now, or jump into something you know you like and just get a positive experience, or like something with Mass Effect, make different decisions, have a slightly different gameplay experience, or story experience. And I've actually gotten a lot of just kind of I don't know really what the right term is. I've gotten a lot of like a more relaxed experience going back to games that I know I really enjoy. Like jumping back into a world like Bully, it's like, oh my
Mm.
God, this is so comforting. Um,
It's
but
the
yeah,
nostalgia, isn't it? It's there's no risk of you know what you're going in, you 100% know what it is. You've already had that experience of, okay, these are the things I know I like and know would dislike. So you know where you place them games in your mental list. So when you're revisiting them, you know, I'm gonna absolutely enjoy this. So there's no downside. So I understand that.
spot on, man. That's exactly right. And but it is a thing whenever my backlog was like through the roof, hundreds of games, I never replayed anything. I was always burning through the backlog. So yeah, I just think it's one of those things where over time I've began to realize how much value there is in just sort of jumping back into a world you're familiar with. But yeah, that's about it for the backlog goals. Now let's talk a little bit about organization. How do you organize your backlog? And we talked about this earlier where I was saying, I pretty much just kind of spur of the moment, spontaneous, play what I want to play. But I do have a few little organizing routines that I implement. But I'd like to know, first off, how do you organize your backlog loan?
Oh, I don't. It's so hard. It's so hard. I think I've said this multiple times. I find it so difficult, even if I've loved something, it's so hard for me to back a genre. Like that rarely ever happens. Like the feeling I got for finishing Persona 3, you would think you could carry that in and then, you know, go play Persona 4 now. And it's just not. It's like I have that scratch the whole time, even though I'm playing Persona 3, it's scratching in the back of my head that I'd like to also touch something else. No matter how much I love something, there's nothing against Persona and stuff. It happens to every genre. So it is difficult, but I also get like decision paralysis. I'm not gonna lie, like when I finish something and you just sit there staring at like the cases and you're like, I don't know what the hell to play. Like
Yeah.
I maybe I do need to take a step back and do some form of serious organization. But I do have something like if I genuinely can't pick anything and I'm sat there for like 30 to 40 minutes, which is not good. That's a lot of wasted time. I just I get somebody to pick a letter, a friend that I'm talking to, whatever, just pick a letter. They'll rattle off a letter and then whatever's not been played, if there's 5 games that begin with the letter A and they pick A, and then it's pick a letter and then pick a number 1 to 5. And they choose for me. And then I'm like, okay, I didn't have to choose that. It's kind of like a
The
making it like a iPod shuffle kind of thing. Like just do that and I don't know what music to listen to. And then you just do that and you're like, okay, I'll deal with
yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent tip. It's kind of like whenever they have like the streamer mode for Quantic Dream games or, the Telltale games when it's like the audience gets to pick from the
Yeah.
choices. It's kind of that. Um, I, so my only organization tool that I use, and it's just a mental tool. I don't have any sort of like, I don't use, what is it like backlogged or, I don't use any of the apps or anything to like chronicle what I want to play, what I have played. I don't really use any of that stuff. I've tried. It just doesn't work for my brain. My brain doesn't really. I'm not unorganized, but I'm not a note-taking organized person. You know what I mean? Like I can typically stay somewhat mentally organized to some degree. And I'm not saying the highest degree, but at some degree. Um, so my mental organization tool is I I know that I've missed the PlayStation 3, 360, 7th gen era. So I'm always looking at that side of my collection. I'm always going, okay, what can I play from that era that could fit into this window of, and this is the one thing I will say I am pretty good at, of knowing what's coming out soon that I'm gonna pick up and kind of having a rough idea for how long that game's gonna be, and then, slotting in where I can the game I want to play before that. So if I'm about to pick up, say, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that's a 50-hour game. I definitely don't want to play a 50-hour game right before that. So I'll jump into, Inside or
Hmm.
Limbo or whatever the case may be. And it's like, okay, cool, a nice short sort of, those games can be frustrating, but they're still somewhere in the relaxing realm. It's not overly mechanically dense to the point where you're going to be forgetting how to play or anything like that. Like it's a nice, somewhat simple experience. But my main priority right now more than anything is the seventh generation. And I don't get me wrong, like I said, I do spur of the moment decision making for my backlog. I think that's the way to have the most fun personally. Just whatever you're wanting to play, play it. But, burning through Fable, Red Dead Redemption 1, the Saboteur, um, uh, there's a bunch more that I can't think of off the top of my head, but like, Deus Ex, Human Revolution, which, I played uh 2 years ago or something like that. But I'm really trying to get those heavy hitters off the list for that seventh generation that I never played. Um, but yeah, that's really my main organization guide is that I keep a track of what I'm about to play and I make sure that what I play before that slots perfectly in. That way,
Hmm.
whenever the game that I'm about to play comes out, I'm not having to stop the other game midway through because then I'm never going to go back to it usually, or it'll be years before I go back to it and I forgot how to play and I got to restart the whole thing. And it's like, no, if I'm about to, a big game's about to come out, let me slot in this little smaller game right before it. And yeah, that's sort of my main organization tool tip.
You said you missed out on a lot of the PS3 and 360 generation. With them, you know, now shutting down the 360 store and stuff like that, obviously prices are going to rise. Have you purchased everything that you know you 100% want to play?
Yeah.
Have you gone through and looked and made sure that you've got everything?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, of course, there's going to be outliers. Obviously, there's going to be things that I stumble upon, a YouTube video, hidden gems, 360 hidden gems or whatever, and it's like, oh my God, I gotta go and check out fucking whatever.
Darkest of Days. There you go. We'll throw that out.
There
Some
you go.
crazy first person shooter.
But yeah, there's always going to be those games, and then you're going to see it's $100 on eBay, and it's like
Mm.
I'm at the point now where it's no, dude, I'm not. I'm way, 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 way out of that space of where I'm gonna throw away money like that on games that are 15, 20 years old. I'm not even gonna pay that for new releases. So yeah, but for the most part, I have the 7th gen games that I really, really feel like are must plays.
Okay, fair enough.
But what are you your this year? What are you kind of the most proud of for knocking off of your backlog this year? Some of your favorite backlog games that you've completed this year, finished this year, or even began playing this year.
So I think this year The only backlog stuff I did was 100% completions. So it was either new releases like Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 and stuff, or it was 100%ing stuff. So it will primarily be a list of 100%ing stuff for me, and that was Elden Ring, of course. Finally getting that completely dusted, being done with it. That's such a weight off my shoulders. And because you're sitting there, because I could have done it at release within like the 2, 3 months after it, because all it was I'd done everything in that first playthrough. It was just two other endings, but you know it's gonna get DLC, and it's like, do I just wait and do it with like the new game instead of doing it when it's much, much harder? Because I ran into that problem in the original Dark Souls where I'd New Game Plus it a bunch of times and then finally went round to buying the DLC and was like, wow, this is brutal. So I didn't want to repeat of that. Um, Fallout 4 was another one. That was
Oh,
a good
nice.
one to get knocked off 100% and be done with that. A little bit regretful that I did it overall. I think that it definitely brought the experience down with some of the stuff, but it was in the vein of the spur of the moment, like enjoying the TV show so much. I was like,
Mm,
it's now or never. Like I'm either gonna do this now or I'm not probably gonna do it ever. And I was like, yeah, I'll just knock it out. At least have
yeah.
a one Fallout game, 100%. Um, but things that weren't in the 100% category, Lords of the Fallen, going back to that after all of its updates.
The
I think that's a
2023 or
yeah, I think that's a phenomenal experience now. Its vanilla release is awful. It is for me, just avoid it. But with the improvements they made and the modifiers and stuff like that, it's just heartwarming to see that it wasn't their IP because I think it was the people who made the Surge that went off and they did that and they didn't have any relation with it, but they took the IP and you could tell that they were either a fan of it or they at least respected it and they listened to people, listened to the feedback, and it did it overall improve the game. Such a better game. And the final two, which I'll just throw out there, would be um, Baldur's Gate 3, of course. Finally, just knocking that off, ticking that off, and enjoying that. I still play. I think it's my third favorite CRPG. A
of
lot
all
of
time.
people, yeah, a lot of people give it tons and tons of praise. And don't get me wrong, it is incredible. The cinematic side of it for a CRPG is unmatched. I'm not going to deny that. Some of the stuff is lacking compared to the other stuff that is out there for me personally. Like I
Yeah.
still think Wrath of the Righteous is number one. I think it's so hard to touch that with what they accomplished. And yeah, Cyberpunk and
Nice.
Phantom Liberty is 100%.
Oh, you 100% in both.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, that's a legit task.
All
Um,
them different damn endings. My God.
for me, man, you know one that I don't think I don't think people like this game as much as the others. I could be wrong, but it just kind of feels that way. The sort of temperature whenever you hear people talk about it. Gears of War 4. I I just finished that. That's my favorite Gears of War game. Like I love that game. I absolutely adore Gears of War 4. I think that almost in every single way it's improved upon. I don't know about multiplayer, maybe the multiplayer isn't as good or whatever, but just campaign, I adore that campaign. I thought it was so strong. Um
Yeah, it
I,
is weird that the coalition gets so much hate. There's this massive divided like line of people who enjoyed 1, 2, 3 and Judgment, And it's the same with the Halo franchise. The people who enjoyed Bungie 1, 2, 3, and then they despise 343. And I think because you didn't play Gears when it first released either, did you?
No. Uh-uh.
I played it very, very small, but I never finished it through like with what we have both done now with knocking them all off mostly. I don't think you've done five yet, have you?
Nope, not five. That's my next one.
So for us coming in years down the line, to me, I think that they're all good games.
Yeah.
And the same with the Halo, like they're all good games. But I don't hold them in like the great either though,
No, I
which some
don't
people do.
either.
Some people herald like Halo 1 as being like a masterpiece or Gears 1, and it's just like I think they're all just like good games. I don't think they do anything like really, really special. Like I think it was just the fact that they were out there at the time and that's what you had to play. I think a
Yeah.
lot of nostalgia's like clouding that because if I'm being honest, like when I look over the fence at like PlayStation's exclusives, I think they eat Xbox alive. Like I'm sorry,
Oh,
like Uncharted shits on
slaughters
Gears of War.
gears. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
does.
not even a competition. Like what it did for the third person cover based stuff, that yeah, that's really impressive and they did that, but it's clunky to play now. Like it's very stiff, very slow, cumbersome. But you can go back and play Uncharted 1 and it has a little bit of clunkiness because obviously it's an older, it's not as crisp as Uncharted 4, but that ages so much better
and
Uncharted
when
1 than
and
Gears 1.
and when you get to two, Uncharted 2 aged better than Gears 4. You know what I mean? Like it then Gears 4 came out whatever 2016. Uncharted
Mm.
2 came out in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, no. The thing about Gears of War 4 though is that's the first game where I actually can see like what people say about the other three in a weird way, where it's like, dude, Gears of War 4 is crazy destructive environments. There's a spectacle with this game. And that's what we were talking about earlier, where it's like linear games, whenever they have these on rail sections, they can do so much more within the environment. And like, but then whenever you're moving the character, it's like, dude, we're not big. I'm not a big tank anymore. I'm playing as kind of a slimmer built dude. Why the hell am I still running around like a tank? Like, let me control this character like a normal third person. It's wild, man.
Yeah, it's the thing that really annoyed me. And I know we're getting a little bit off topic,
It's all
but
good.
it's with it upcoming, Space Marine 2. That first Space Marine game was compared to Gears of War so heavily. They both have hulking Goliath like characters, but you could move as a Space Marine in Space Marine 1. And in Gears, you feel so restrictive. And it always baffled me that Space Marine 1 got so much shade for being a clone of it and stuff, and people completely dismissed it. And it does so much better across the board than it just had less budget. That was it.
Mm, dude.
And it's just an unknown IP at that time. And I'm just hoping Space Marine 2 slays it.
Yeah. Hey, I got that bad boy pre-ordered. I'm ready for that thing, man. I'm gonna do a deep dive, not a deep dive. I'm gonna watch like a, video, catching me up because I wanted to play the first one this year, but I just don't have the damn time. I mean, I could have slotted it in somewhere, but I haven't picked up the copy yet. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna jump straight into two. If I like two, maybe I'll go back and play one after, you know.
Yeah, the story recap's pretty light. The thing I also want to throw out the bolt gun that came out, that Doom kind of style 40K game. I didn't even know
Mm.
that's bridging the gap of the two stories, which I didn't even know.
Oh
So
wow.
that's got like story segments and little lore bits to show what's happened and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Um, so I'll go through a couple more of my seventh gen ones this year.
Mhm.
Red Dead 1, like I talked about earlier. The Walking Dead series. That was one I missed out on that boat. I just wasn't playing games whenever The Walking Dead came out. And man, I played through the entire series this year. And that was a magical experience. I really, really enjoyed that. I think that first season is as good. of a video game narrative as really almost anything that's ever been out there. It's so, so strong. And also, yeah, shout out to Gears of War 3 and Gears of War 2. I played through both of those this year. Blitz the League 2. I gotta shout this out. This is a football, arcadey football game. It is really unlike it's I mean, well, I guess it's not unlike any other football game out there because it's a lot like the first one, but it's that series is unlike anything else because it's threading the gap between, you know, your Maddens and also your like old school Blitz games, but it's not quite that arcadey. Like I've never, NFL Street I really, really enjoy because I think it kind of does a good job of threading that needle as well. But like totally over the top arcadey sports games like NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, the old NFL Blitz games, those were really never my bag. But Blitz the League, I think, perfectly down the middle in between simulation and arcadey. I love the gameplay of that. And also it's got a really good story, which is like, what the hell? What sports game ever has a really good story?
Is that a newer gen release, this one?
No, that's
Or is
that's
this
yep,
360
360.
PS3? Okay.
hmm Good old seventh gen. Games from this gen that or I guess last gen, both of these, but Wolfenstein 2, just unbelievably good. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I think both of those are excellent, excellent games that I finished this year.
Okay, this is the perfect, like, you've done Wolfenstein 1 and 2 now, right?
Yeah.
And you've done all them Tomb Raider reboots.
Yeah,
So of the
finished them
Tomb
off.
Raider, which is the best and which one do you prefer of Wolfenstein 1 or 2?
Ooh, Wolfenstein 2, without a doubt. The Tomb Raider ones, ooh, I might, dude, they're all so close to me. I think all of those games are like 9 out of 10s. Like I think they're
Hmm.
all so, so good, dude. Um, I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider has a really, really dope world. And that final like hour and 30-minute stretch, 2 hour stretch, that might put it over the top for me. Like once again, I think we both really appreciate spectacle. And when you're running down and like it's that lava or whatever that's floating down and it's pushing all of the buildings down the like it's down that cliff or down that hill or whatever, you're jumping around and then the helicopter, dude, there's some badass moments at the end of Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Um, I might go Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I don't know. I'd have to think about it more. They're all so close. You could any given day I could pick one or the other.
Fair
What do
enough.
you think? How do you feel? Wolfenstein 1 or 2, which of the Tomb Raiders?
I have like a because the train scene in Wolfenstein 1
Yeah.
kind of stuck with me because I'd never played the 360 Wolfenstein game before
Mm,
that. And I remember going into Game, the equivalent of GameStop in the UK. I remember
mhm.
when that was like coming up, releasing, and they had a little TV showing that scene. I was just glued watching that. I was like, oh my God. So there's that kind of like grips me, but I think as the overall experience, it'd have to be Wolfenstein 2. Like the stuff they do in that game is outrageous.
It's so
Like
crazy.
I spoilers, like I can't go, but the stuff, like even just the choice of some of the stuff that, oh,
Talking about making a movie?
yep. Oh my God, that not the balls it takes to shoot a scene like that, and then just yeah, the
Dude,
writing for a first person shooter that's considered like you don't think of Wolfenstein when you think of like really well written stuff. It's meant to just be some guy mowing Nazis down by the thousands, and it's so perfectly written, so
dude.
strong.
That I genuinely think Wolfenstein 2 is one of the best, like most well-written video games ever. It is impeccable, dude. It is like you were glued to that narrative from front to back. And like we'll get into this more when we do our ranking, but the comedy, man.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. It is hilarious.
and they've pulled that into Indiana Jones. It's why I wasn't like completely against it. I was like, if anyone can pull it off, it would be the two people you'd want to have a crack at like a first person, really narrative rich game would probably either be Respawn, because they could probably do really well. But I think they wouldn't get the comedy right for an Indiana Jones game. I don't think they'd be able to master that as well as Machine Games would. They just that that cutscene in Indiana Jones that they showed us of the boat section, it was just perfect. That is you could show that to anybody that has no idea of video games that could be perceived as a movie and they could be fully invested and be like, oh, that's a new Indiana Jones movie. That looks incredible. So they've done such a good job.
Dude, yeah, and that's the thing when Indiana Jones was announced. That's why I went in because I played Wolfenstein 1 and 2 this year, finished both of them this year. And that's the reason because I wanted to see like what their chops were. And then I was like, "Oh my God, dude,
Yep.
I'm sorry for even doubting this. This is going to be excellent." Um, but yeah,
Tomb
look, that
Raider, it would be Rise for me because snowy environments are just my are just my thing, and that's it. Like they're like you said, they're all 9 out of 10 games. It'd be so difficult to edge, but if I had to, it'd probably be Rise overall for me.
dude, I think Rise has some of the best like I didn't do a ton of them, but every time I did a side quest in Rise of the Ronin, or Rise of the Ronin, Rise of the Tomb Raider, too many damn rises. Uh, whenever I did
Rise
a
of the
side,
Triad.
whenever I did a side quest in Rise of the Tomb Raider, I was like, dude, a lot of these are better than the main
Mm.
story. Like those side quests are excellent, and even how you kind of stumble upon them in Rise, I think is really just really well designed.
It also had the strongest DLC, in my
I,
opinion.
I haven't played
It had
that
a
yet.
Baba Yaga DLC. It had the Croft Manor thing, where it had a horror
Ooh.
element tied to it. And it was just like, man, you guys know what you're doing. And it's so sad that hardly anybody touched the DLCs and hardly anyone touched Shadow. Because now look what we have. We don't have them really doing much anymore. They're walking a very tightrope. They feel like they're on that cusp of going under, it feels like, compared to a lot of other companies. I'm worried about them being the next to fall.
Yeah, it's under that damn Embracer umbrella, so it's like that doesn't give you. To be fair though, they do have Amazon funding their next game, the next Tomb Raider game, and then Microsoft's funding or Microsoft's paying them to pretty much do the damn initiative's job to create Perfect Dark. So they're busy, but man, yeah, I don't like them being under Embracer's clutches whatsoever. So, do you have any tips for the good people out there? How you handle your backlog, how you deal with your backlog? What's your approach to dealing with the backlog? Do you have any good tips you would like to share with the people out there?
So this was also a difficult question to because everybody's different, obviously, with how you approach, adversity in your life and trying to conquer something. I think it's kind of a cop out, but like just prioritize enjoyment first and foremost. Like I know we all, like you and me, we really search out for experiences and stuff, and that can sometimes backfire. Like Hellblade, for instance, Hellblade 2. Like, I'm sorry, I gotta always dig it out. It's my new Starfield. Until something else comes out, I'm gonna keep digging it out. We wanted it to be something that it was never going to be, and that's because we were. You hope with sequels they get bigger, better, they expand, and they add more stuff, and they won so many awards in that first game. They probably felt they didn't need to change anything deep down. Like they could do what they want and it would probably get more critical acclaim and success. And there are people that give it that. And I think it's we I can't speak for you. I think I should be better at trying to target fun over an experience. If I because it was foolish looking back at it now thinking that I was going to enjoy it. It was more hopefulness, heart overhead, basically.
Yeah. I I think that there's definitely something to that. And I think there's also something to being a little bit more selective. Like you want to expand outside of your comfort zone for sure. Like you want to try new genres and more indie games, this, that, and the other. And like I try to do that as well. But I also have kind of realized that certain things you're just not gonna vibe with. And you probably need to figure that out and find out some of the things you don't vibe with. And it's not to say never to try a game that's in that genre that you don't vibe with, because genres evolve so much over time. And you might vibe with a game in the Souls genre that, you really do vibe with, but it might just not be FromSofts or like, you know what I mean? Like experimenting is great, but there there does come a point where like you're gonna keep adding to your backlog of stuff that you're never going to play, and you know you're not going to play it, but you pick it up like you said earlier. You pick it up on a Steam sale or you pick it up on a, whatever sale, and you get it for $5. But it's like, really, what is the point of that purchase? Like if you're not going to check it out, like just to
Mm.
have it, especially if it's digital, it's like I mean, you just literally burned $5 for it to sit in your digital collection. So impulse purchasing, I would say that's a big tip in my opinion, is try to buy with some intention. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try out new experiences or whatever, but try to have some intentionality with it with your purchasing decisions. That would be a big tip for me.
Yeah. Um, Also, if your interest starts to wane, don't push through it. That's the worst thing to do. And I do this a lot.
Saying.
I Callisto. Stubbornness. It really is just so hard to get that under control sometimes because you push through it and it's just like, you probably shouldn't have pushed through that. You should have probably just called it quits. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be
My
another one for me.
my big thing is the 2 hour rule. I don't necessarily always abide by it, but I always think about it where it's like after I put, because that's my gaming time usually, about 2 to 3 hours. And after that first session, when I boot up a game for the first time, I know, you know, it I'm never ever going to be one of those people who tells someone it gets good after 20 hours or it gets good after 15 hours. I think that's so insulting to somebody's time. After 3 hours, 2 hours, a good gaming session, you should have an idea if that game's for you or not. And I think if you don't, that's an indictment on the designer. That's an indictment on the developer. They should let you know and have a decent understanding if that game's going to be for you or not after 2 hours, especially a single player game. You know what I mean? If we're talking MMOs or we're talking whatever, games that evolve, but a single player narrative driven game, you should know after a couple hours if that game's going to be for you or not. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I totally agree with you on that. Also, physical collector. I would say if you are a physical collector or you're beginning a physical collection, start small, man. I think one of the things I regret the most is binging, going to different stores and dropping, $300, $400 and having this mountain of backlog games where it's like, dude, I would much rather, like, if I could go back now, I would much rather just pick up two, three games at a time, spend 30, $40, finish those two, three games, or, play them and realize they're not for me, and then just go two, three at a time and build up a really like, not sentimental, that's kind of not the word I'm looking for. Like build up a collection that is personal to you.
A targeted collection that means more to you than looking over there and being like, I don't know what half of them titles are.
Exactly.
I think that's very difficult. I will empathize though at the same time because we've seen, especially over the past like 15 years, when things become common knowledge is once it hits that retro tag, the prices just skyrocket. So you kind of have that. There's always a ticking timer, it feels like, when you're building a collection of if it when it's on the cheap, it's so much easier to buy these things in troves because you're like you don't know what's going to shoot up in price. Like something that I use as an example is before Baldur's Gate 3, them Beamdog HD re-releases, no one wanted them. You could buy them for about $2 on Amazon, and there was hundreds of them. The
Yeah.
collector's editions of them games were going for $20. The moment Baldur's Gate 3 began that snowball rolling, these games that were completely worthless and meaningless are now base 80 and collector's editions in the hundreds. Just because of a name has got value again. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
The one thing I would say to that though is I think more often than not, and you're right, there are certain times where it's like, damn, that's a great game that went from 20 to 140. But I would say more often than not, those games are never worth it. I'm not saying that about necessarily,
Mhm.
the HD re-releases, but I like Phantom Dust for the original Xbox, I really like that game. Dude, I no fucking chance is it worth $100. The Silent Hill classic games, like I love those first three games. Not a single one is worth $100. Not a single one. You know what I mean? Like it's just I think there is something to as a gamer understanding that this is a stupid ass market and things are going to get priced ridiculously because of trends and just learning to stay in a lane and not hop to the trend. You know what I mean? Because if the 360 goes through the roof, the PS4 and Xbox One, those games are, I mean, they're in the bargain bin everywhere. Stay with that. You know what I mean? And to your point though, I what I will 100% agree with is you saying, well, if you're collecting for PS4, Xbox One, it's hard not to have that impulse of buy up everything
Mhm.
before it gets to that price where it's skyrocketed. I do tend to agree with that. Um, and and that does go back to what we were saying earlier though. If you do kind of find yourself in that groove and you have, made some impulse purchases and you got this big old backlog, just play what you want. And that's another kind of tip, I guess, that would slot in here is like, just dude, have fun. Play what the hell you want. And if you have a mountain of 100 backlog games, like they'll still be there. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah, no, for sure.
um, I another thing that I think kind of did you have any other tips?
No, I don't. I find it hard giving tips to people about back. I feel bad. It's like, what? I struggle with this myself. How the hell am I going to have any information on helping people? This
I
shit's a struggle.
One thing I'll add this last bit. Playing games on easy will melt your backlog away.
Yeah,
If you're not vibing with the combat of a game and you drop that thing down to easy, like of course if you love the combat and you want to, play it on the highest possible difficulty just because you love it so much, don't rob yourself of that experience. But if you're like, yeah, dude, this combat's dog shit, but I like the story. You drop that thing down to easy, that goes from a 30-hour game to maybe a 20, maybe 18, 15-hour game. Like it really can melt hours away like crazy.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that that
Because
that would
what's it worth? Like you have the bragging rights of it. Because we saw this hugely when Shadow of the Erdtree come out. There was the all the time whenever Souls game. Oh, you summoned. You didn't beat the boss properly then, did you? Man, shut the fuck up. Like, get out of here. And like it was beautiful because Miyazaki actually came out and they interviewed him and stuff and like how does he approach the games? He's like, dude, I use every single I'm bad at these games. I'm the creator and I suck at these games. Like I'm using every single consumable I can get my hands on. I'm using summons, whatever. Like we are going in there and we punk that boss. It's just like, yeah, my man.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's you got to stay out of those corners of the internet. You know, if you're somebody who's like getting into gaming for the first time or getting back into gaming after a while, dude, there are some people out there that will make you d despise this hobby. You know what I mean? Like people that will rob your enjoyment. And it's like, dude, there is absolutely nothing wrong with dropping that difficulty down. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using summons. It's it's a part of the experience. You know what I mean? I listen, I'm not saying if you're reviewing a game or whatever that yeah, maybe there is some merit to the idea of playing it on normal as the intended experience, and that way you can kind of or you know jump in between difficulties. That way you can kind of
Yeah,
discuss.
yeah,
I get that, but for the average person who's just wanting to enjoy a game, like you're not hurting anybody
yeah,
by playing however the hell you want to play the game, dude. Have fun,
yeah.
man.
And not saying you obviously don't challenge yourself at all. If that's something that you want to set for yourself, power to you. I've done stuff myself that if there wasn't achievements tied to it, I wouldn't have touched. I wouldn't have beat Slay the Spire in 20 minutes and stuff like that. I like taking my time. I'm gonna read the damn cards, but you do feel a sense of accomplishment that is unrivaled when you do stuff like that. But the main important thing is don't get caught up in solely focusing on stuff like that. That's cool if you can do it and want to do that, but don't have that rule the entire experience because you will end up resenting games because you will put these restrictions and limitations. You'll just end up getting angry and bitter, and then you won't enjoy that game. And it's something that if you just bumped it down, it would be a game that you would put in your top 10 list,
Right.
and you've now binned it because you hate it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, dude, The Witcher 3 is a great example of that for me, where I bounced out of that game so many times because I just was like, man, this is like, you know, Shadow of Mordor Arkham combat, but like, hey, we got it at Walmart or we got it at home, you know, we got McDonald's at home when your mom said we got McDonald's at home. Like it just and I'm not trying to shit on The Witcher 3's combat because I know that there's layers to it and you know, it gets intricate and involved the more you understand it, but man, I would recommend to anybody who's just booting up The Witcher for the first time, drop it down and then, you know, bump it up as you go. That's one of those games like the more you understand it, the more the combat can get fun and
yep,
you're evolving as a player of The Witcher 3 and you're kind of comprehending the combat as it goes along. But when you first boot the game up, dude, I was just like, man, this is clunky as
just jump back
hell.
and then he does that. It's just that for the first 10 hours. That is it.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, but that's the thing, like you said, where it's one of those things where I bounced off of it so many times. But if you just drop the difficulty down now, it probably is somewhere in my top 10. I mean, it's probably my second or third favorite story in video games ever. So yeah, you're 100% correct. Um, but yeah, those are really the only little tips I have for backlog tips. Um, this is a good one that you brought up. If you could forget one game and experience it again for the first time, or experience it for the first time, not again, because you're forgetting it. If you could experience it for the first time, what would it be? And I love this how this ties into the backlog because there's so much on our backlog where it's like, dude, trying to pick one of those titles to forget and experience for the first time, like that's a task. But I want to kick it to you because I feel like with you thinking this up, did you have a good one in mind?
I did struggle because there's so many. And the thing, I also put a little bit of a restriction. I don't know if you did this or if you chose. I didn't want to choose an entry in a series because it wouldn't have made sense for me.
Uh okay, okay.
Um, because then you think like if you, I'm not saying this is what I chose, but like Mass Effect 2, it'd be very weird to just because it impacts other stuff. So
Right.
for me, and it is kind of cheating because they are technically like a universe, but you play them singularly. They just reference each other, they and stuff. They're very distant, and it would be Control.
Oh wow. Okay.
It was there's so many games like I love CRPGs and stuff, but I bounce off of them. it takes me so long to get into them because I'm like, okay, I'll try this class, this. Control just gripped me from start to finish. It was just intrigue the game. And every corner, every collectible had something interesting tied to it. Every side quest that wasn't the repeatable crap that you got for the currency and stuff that you were interacting with, like fridge duty and stuff like that, just the wacky, crazy stuff that you get on in that game. And it's just like, this is just a treat. And then you get to that song section, which I trumpet every moment I can get. Hands down the best like music set piece in any game.
That's a
Gave
really
me
good
like
pick
shivers. This is perfect. Such a damn good game.
because also it's such an impactful game. You know what I mean? That's one of those games like where there's so many story moments and just kind of like plot twist, mind fuck moments that like it's all about that first experience. You know what I mean? It's never going to hit as hard the second time because it's so dependent upon the shock. Like that's such a shocking game. So yeah, I think that's a excellent pick, man. Damn, now I'm kind of regretting my pick because
You shouldn't regret it, man.
I
It,
the,
it had importance to you.
yeah, this is all sentimental though. There's no actual real. So I selected The Wolf Among Us, and
Oh,
but that really, when you think about it, that's one of those games where you almost can enjoy it more on a second playthrough or a third playthrough because of the choices. You know what I mean? There's so much variety in the outcome and well, not necessarily the outcome. There's so much variety in the choices you can make and kind of the different branching options that it does benefit the game to play it a second or third time.
in your defense, though, like put yourself back into the shoes, right? Of when you, because that was the thing that got you, that propelled you back into gaming, right? With all
Yeah,
your knowledge now of all the games that you could have had in that slot, you'd probably still choose the, because it's such a an easy experience with it being a Telltale game. And I don't know about you, it's my favorite Telltale game.
by far.
So of all the choices to have as something that propels you back into this hobby that you love so much, would there have been anything that could have taken its place?
Definitely not. And I think that that's the thing where the the part of the question experience for the first time again. I'm thinking about all the experiences around that experience, if that makes sense. Where like, could I could I go back to 2013 or whatever and could I be me again in 2013 playing that? And then after I finish playing that and I still have this blank slate of memories or this blank slate of knowledge of games, and I'm like, oh shit. Because I'll never forget finishing The Wolf Among Us and then heading to GameStop and picking up The Last of Us, and then diving into the Uncharted series after that, and then diving into Mass Effect after that. And like there was just this huge awakening of sorts, and it's all because of The Wolf Among Us. And like I, I don't know if you feel this way, but walking into a game store and feeling that sense of mystery is like completely gone for me now. And that's such a bummer because back at that time, every single time I walked into any game store, that PS3 generation, it was just totally mysterious to me. I could go over to
Mm.
that, 360 PS3 and sort through it and like, oh, dude, what is, like, and I'd have an under, I knew what Deus Ex was, but like, I, I had no idea. Maybe this is going to be my new favorite game of all time. Like everything could have been my new favorite of all time. I didn't have that level of I didn't play almost anything throughout I played, like Far Cry 3 and Saints Row and Grand Theft Auto and like the sports games, but I was such a casual gamer that
Mm.
it was such a there were so many options on the table. And that sense of wonder walking into a game store just felt so so incredible that I don't feel anymore, which is a bummer.
Yeah, the blissful ignorance of it.
Yes.
Because it's so important to us that we want to know everything about everything all the time.
Yeah.
And that is a double-edged sword because we no longer have that. And I think it is also the way we consume media though as well. Like even if you're a casual gamer, you've probably heard a lot more about these big series than you would have 15, 20 years ago because it would have
Yeah,
required you to like read a magazine and you'd probably gloss over. You probably wouldn't have bought that magazine if you're a casual to
right.
begin with. So with things just being there like that, I think, and either because I go into a game store and I can't think of the last time I've gone into one and like seen something and been like, I've never seen that before. You know a lot about even just the obscure stuff because you've gone and watched videos of hidden gems, or you've gone and played it yourself, or you've heard it through word of mouth by people and stuff like that. So it is sad that we miss that now.
Yeah, dude. Because I go into my GameStop all the time, and I mean, I literally probably go once a week, and I go to the PS5 section, Xbox section, just sort of looking through it, and I can't tell you the last time I even saw a game that I'd never heard of, and like, it's just like, damn, I what I would
We're big
give.
nerds, man.
For real, but what I would give to be back in that 2013 just like you said, blissful ignorance
Mm.
of picking up big franchises and being like, I don't know. Like that there is something really, really special about those years.
What what was the last series? Because the last series for me, where you had that like Eureka hurrah moment, like I'd heard of the Persona games,
Hmm.
but never played them. And the moment I played Persona 3, as you can tell, like, it left not only an impression on me, I'm a fucking addict, man. I've bought every collector's edition that's come out since. I have all of the mangas and stuff, all of the TV shows, like it is a core part of my life now.
I I couldn't do a series, but I can do an individual game. And this was 2019. I played Alpha Protocol for the first time, and I had such low expectations because of everything that I heard, and I just fell in love. Like it's probably one of my top 25, 30 favorite games ever. And it's janky as shit, like everybody says, but man, there's so much charm in that thing. And that was probably the last time where I felt like true sense of wonder, where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm but and not even a sense of wonder, just having my expectations flipped upside down, where halfway through the game I'm like considering, is this like one of my favorite games ever?
Yeah, it's such a rare experience to get now
Yeah,
because a lot of it is not to like put the wind out of the sails, that a lot of it is copy pasted
yeah,
cookie cutter stuff. Like it's either a story that's ever so slightly adapted, and you're like, I can see where this is going, and stuff like
yeah.
that, or a gameplay loop that you've done time and time again, and it's man, that's why it's so amazing when an indie game comes out and does something that shakes something up.
Yes.
And that's why they're so important. They cannot go from the industry, whether or not you like them or not. You look at, because for me personally, I didn't enjoy Undertale, but
Mm.
it is so important that that game came out because it had such an effect on other things.
Well, dude, and it's like that Dungeons of Hinterberg game. I hate to keep bringing it up when I haven't even played it, so I don't have any knowledge. But like, when I see that and I'm like, yo, that's got some stuff. Like that game's doing some weird shit. And that really can only be explored in that space to that degree. I mean, it could be explored in the AAA space. I just don't fucking do it. The thing, Wolfenstein kind of fits that bill for me of what you were talking about a second ago, like with Persona, of games that just kind of shocked you, or left you with that sort of sense of one. I don't know the right word I'm looking for. I guess shocked you is like totally surprised you.
Took you by surprise and just you knew that because I knew I was going to enjoy it because I've enjoyed Final Fantasy and stuff, but you just leave and it's so important to you now. Like whatever game they put out moving forward, you are there day one. Like it's made
Yes.
that big of an impact. Whatever, no matter what other, like even if it's not even a sequel, like Atlas made such an impression on me. I went and bought Unicorn Overlord.
Worst
Like I
title
wouldn't
ever.
I wouldn't have ever like I would have seen that in the store, right? And the covers, the names, I wouldn't have ever purchased that. But you see Atlas name and you're like, I trust you. Like, show me what you've got.
That is exactly the way to phrase it. Where Machine Games held no weight to me whatsoever before jumping into this Wolfenstein reboot. Like I just never played their games, I had no interest.
Hmm.
But now and that's the thing. I had no expectations at all. Like I just thought, like you said, you're gonna shoot a bunch of Nazis. Cool, I'm down to shoot some Nazis. I had no idea that they were narrative masterminds. And now I'm
Yeah.
like, anything made by Machine Games, I don't give a damn what it is. You got me. Day one, I'm there. I mean, and Wolfenstein 2, it's like a 10 out of 10. You know, like
Hmm.
I don't have complaints with that game almost at all. It is nearly flawless. Which we'll get into that when we do our full ranking, dive deep into these games. Hopefully not dive too deep into it because boy, we got a lot of games to talk about. That might be a juggernaut of a video.
It'll
But
be another Dragon Age.
But dude, that was pretty much all I had for this one. Actually, we'll close off with the last question, quick one. Do you think you would enjoy gaming more or less with or without the backlog?
So when you phrase it in that way,
I
obviously
think
there's always going to be games that we play. Do you mean would I prefer to live in a world where I buy title to title? Like I never have anything on the shelf. It's whatever I'm playing is whatever I'm playing. I finish it and then I move on. Or
yes. Like if you had zero on your shelf, well, you can have, okay, every game that you buy and play and finish or just buy and play and you're done with, you keep that on your shelf, but that's the experience. And there's nothing on your shelf that you haven't experienced.
I couldn't do that.
Couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it. I Because you see me constantly when I'm in these videos. I'm always looking over there, and it just I can't. There's a shelf there that is full of 360 games, and I just can't help myself. It's like a warmth feeling surrounding yourself with things that you love.
But that's the thing. You can keep all of those.
But
Everything you can.
I've not beat all of these though. And I even like I don't know, it's so important to me as a physical collector as well. Like, yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'd need the backlog. I need it. It's important, man.
I I'm probably with you. I'm probably with you. Um, yeah. I I'm probably with you. It's tough to me because at times I do think that it's like a fresh start, like just emptying off everything that I've never played. And I've genuinely thought about that a lot as of late. I'm not gonna lie. I've looked over at my shelves and I'm like, should I get rid of everything that I haven't played and just totally just surround myself with only things that I have real knowledge of, real experience with? I've genuinely thought about that, and I do have some interest in doing that. But at the same time, I resort back to that thing you said earlier of like, yeah, but then the game goes up to $150 and you want to play it and you bought it for four, and it's like,
Yeah. That for me as well though, this may sound really stupid, and I don't know if many people will agree with me, but gaming isn't solely positive. There's gonna be them crap games that you play. And it's always good to remind yourself that not everything is going to be a 10 out of 10 game. Because I look
yes.
over there and it's just like, dude, Brink, oh boy, what a game. And it's important to remind yourself that, they're just experiences. That's it. Some of them aren't going to be for you and some of them are going to be for you. And that's also why, because I don't sell anything. I have a major regret of I fell into that trap as, you're a kid, you don't have much money. So you're
Yeah.
constantly churning and turning over stuff. There's so many things I wish I kept hold of, like the original Getaway and stuff, because you think of that has memories tied to it. That's a
Yeah.
childhood. That's a game you had in your childhood. And GTA San Andreas, when that came out, my mom got me day one. Went to the thing and she's shopping for food, and I'm sitting there on this little bench because I can remember it one-to-one memories, and this is what I mean. That's the impact it has on you. Is that she's off getting the shopping, and I'm sitting there, the glass window behind my back, and I'm just looking at the back of this case, and I'm like, I can't wait to dive into this. And that's the magic it that's never been replicated in a movie for me. That's never been replicated in a
No.
book. It's that sense of wonder that you're not just sitting there consuming it that way. You're in that world. You exist in there as a
Yeah.
thing. You have the ability to act and affect and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it's unparalleled.
Yeah. You're not just consuming an experience, you are the experience. Like the
Mm,
experience is happening through you. It's such a magical medium, man. Such a magical medium. Yeah. What a damn hobby. What a damn hobby. Love it so much. And, I think that we talked earlier about a lot of those like burdens and a lot of those negatives. And I do, dude, there's what you said about playing a 4 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 game to make you appreciate a 9, a 10 out of 10 game, or even an 8 or 7 out of 10 game. That is so, so true. But I do think that, when we talked earlier about people who are putting a little bit too much pressure on themselves when they're gaming to do it on the hardest difficulty, play through the whole battle, like yada yada yada. There is something about just letting this hobby be what it is, trying to take it in as uh trying to just let this thing be as positive as it can be, because I really don't. I think if you can block out a lot of the noise, there's nothing like gaming. There's
yep.
nothing like it's not even close. But there is a lot of noise that you have to block out in order to just truly be able to appreciate and enjoy the hobby. But yeah, man, it's pretty much all I had for the backlog topic list. Once again, a topic that we thought would go for 30 minutes, and here we are. But we appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. It is always a blast to sit here and record these with you, Loon. So I appreciate you for joining, hopping on to discuss the backlog. And I shall see you very soon as whew, I'm gonna prepare, man. That's gonna be a
Mm,
juggernaut. That ranking video is going to be a
yeah.
juggernaut.
Minimum 10 apiece, it would appear.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a long one. But
Yeah.
yeah, for this, I want to hear people's experiences and stuff like that, and how they view backlogs, whether or not it's positive, negative, what they have on their backlog. Because it's always interesting to see, for me, because like you said with your S tiers and stuff, there's things that people that we wouldn't view as S tier that is
Right.
on the top of their list, and it's like, man, that's interesting. And you reading that can sometimes result in you may never heard of the game. So we could actually recapture some of that. Oh my God, that wonder
Yes.
that we don't get as much. So yeah,
Dude.
hit
And
us up in the comments, man.
it'll also be fun to see people's S tier games because like seeing what people chose not to play is also really interesting, where it's like someone has, Metal Gear, Grand Theft Auto, or, Red Dead or whatever on their list. And it's like, damn, how have you
Mm.
gone your whole life without playing? But then it's like, the same thing can be said for each and every single one of us. How the hell have you gone? I haven't played the Assassin's Creed. I dabbled with them, but like I haven't really played the Assassin's Creed games. It's like, how the hell have you gone your whole life without playing Assassin's Creed? Everybody's played Assassin's Creed. But everybody has those games where it's like, everybody's played that. How have you not played it? But
Yeah,
somehow we all have it.
it's because there's so many of the damn thing.
Absolutely, man. But yeah, hit us in the comments. What are your S tier backlog games? And we shall see you soon, man. We shall see you soon for some rankings. That'll probably drop the 31st. I'm gonna try to hit those the 31st each month, get those out. But once again, if we're talking about a 3 hour video, which I would not doubt at all, give me a little bit of leeway. Might drop August 1st, August 2nd, but it shall be coming to you soon. We appreciate you good people for tuning in, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.
See you later.